Season 1 of Helluva Boss is only supposed to have 8 episodes, and with us being 6 episodes into the season, that means there are only 2 left. 2 episodes that we know will feature a bigger look at the Lust Ring, as well as what appears to be the Prince of Lust himself, Asmodeus. So I can't think of a better time to go back to where it all started, in the Helluva Boss pilot, to see what hidden details we can pick out that might inform us about what is to come, and what the original story of Helluva Boss was all about. I'm Deepcut, your YouTube, and only 10% of our viewers are actually subscribed. We know who you are. There is nowhere to run. There is nowhere to hide. So you might as well subscribe anyway. Now, for those who don't know, Helluva Boss was not originally intended to be its own show, but rather Blitz and Moxie were meant to fulfill a similar role on Hazbin Hotel as side characters who were assassins for hire that could cause trouble for the Hazbin Hotel gang. This is likely why we can actually see Blitz a lot in the background of the scene in the Hazbin Hotel pilot where Charlie is on the news, both before and during her musical number, as a lot of the characters that we see in the background of the pilot were actually going to be bigger characters later on in the show. The pilot opens with some very interesting information in its first shot, where we can see that the show takes place somewhere called Imp City, and that it was only established at the beginning of the 1980s. While we didn't know about the different rings of hell at the time that this pilot aired, the red skies were an indication that this takes place in the Pride Ring, the same ring as Hazbin Hotel. While imps and other natural-born species of hell are able to travel freely between all of the rings, including the Pride Ring, sinners are stuck in the Pride Ring alone, which is why the IMP office has to be in the Pride Ring, otherwise the dead human customers couldn't even get to their office. We don't know where Imp City is in relation to Pentagram City, which is the city that Hazbin Hotel takes place in, but it seems to be relatively close. A few background characters have appeared in both shows and in both cities, and we can see the pentagram that hovers over Pentagram City in one of the backgrounds in the Helluva Boss pilot. This happens to be in a commercial that Blitz was filming for IMP, so I don't think that they can actually see the pentagram from Imp City, but rather that they traveled to Pentagram City in order to film the commercial there to make it feel more professional. A TV pilot is basically a first draft of a TV series, and while many shows use their pilots as a first episode, some shows make substantial changes between their pilots and TV series, and Helluva Boss has a few interesting ones. The first obvious one is that Millie has different colored hair than in the series. It is mostly the same, being very dark, but there is one small patch of white that you can see throughout the entire pilot. Once we get to the official episode 1, however, that white spot is gone, with the exception of just one quick shot in episode 3, where it reappears as Millie fights the sea monster, though it appears to just be an animation error here, someone who worked on the pilot but forgot that the white hair was no longer in Millie's official design. Imps have secondary sexual traits beyond the ones that they share with humans, such as the men having white hair and the girls having black hair, as well as men having bigger horns with thick stripes and women having smaller horns with thin white stripes. A similar white spot of hair on Millie's sister, Sally Mae, as well as her thick striped horns, helped fans piece together that this character is trans before the cast and crew revealed it themselves. It may be possible that Millie was intended to be trans in this pilot, but all of the other imps we see in the background of this episode appear to break the rules of gender differences from the rest of the series as well. A lot of the imps have fleshy red horns without any stripes at all, and another female imp can be seen with white hair as well. The likely answer is just that these rules were things being figured out at the time, with them being solidified between the pilot and the main series, hence the changes in Millie's hair. Despite not being in every episode like the IMP cast members tend to be, Stolas was introduced in this episode as well, and he gives us what may be our first look outside of the Pride Ring. When Blitz recalls how he stole the book after sleeping with Stolas, we see that the mansion is somewhere with a pink-looking sky. At the time, many fans probably wrote it off as it being either early morning or late in the evening, and that it was just a different shade of the same red sky that we see everywhere else. Once we found out that there were 7 rings of hell, and each ring had a differently colored sky, it led me to presume that this was our first look at one of those other rings, presumably Lust because of the color and the general aesthetic of Stolas' mansion, such as the heart-shaped fountain he has in the background here. In future episodes, the sky seems to be pink for the most part, with what may be a sunrise or sunset shot showing a little bit of an orange glow there. Another interesting difference between the pilot and the main series is some of the posters that the IMP gang have hanging on their office walls. One particularly big change was to a poster we can see in the pilot that reveals Blitz used to be part of a circus act called the Imp Siblings, with two imps named Tilla and Barbie Wire who appear to be his sisters. In the main series, the poster is substantially different, but we didn't get a good look at it until episode 4. In this close-up, we can see that Tilla was removed entirely. Barbie Wire still remained, but the act was changed to the Imp Twins instead of Imp Siblings. Veronica would later make a joke about how rehab is only for washed-up losers who are no longer famous, and indicates that this is why Blitz's sister is in rehab. This leads me to believe that Blitz and his sister split ways when Barbie Wire managed to find success without Blitz, but as Veronica said, is now washed up. An even more interesting change to this poster is that in this updated version, Blitz is actually now missing his giant white spot from his face. We now know that the white spots on imps are generally scar tissue, as we have seen imps get injured, such as taking a bullet to the arm, and then in later episodes reveal a white spot where the wound was. Some white spots may occur a bit more naturally, like Moxie's freckles, or like some of the more aesthetic white spots we've seen can be purposely inflicted like a tattoo. This indicates that Blitz may have had a very serious injury that messed up half of his face, and I'm sure we'll be getting an explanation for it at some point. Early on, Vivzipop said that imps were the lowest of the low, and while the show does portray them as being pretty low in the hierarchy of hell, hellhounds were always treated just a bit worse. They are generally referred to like property as opposed to employees. Vivzipop would later come out and clarify that hellhounds are in fact just below imps in the hierarchy, but the evidence of this did exist even in the pilot. Blitz, a lowly imp, was able to adopt a hellhound like Luna, as he mentions in the pilot, and just above Moxie and Millie's apartment, we can see that hellhounds are being advertised like a product. We later see them advertising RoboFizz love bots in the same way, so that really should highlight just how low they are comparatively. In the background of one shot, we can see a homeless imp holding a sign that says Satan Bless, one of many references in the series that indicates imps worship Satan as something like a god, which makes sense considering most imps seem to be from the Wrath Ring, and according to the Peter Binsfield classification of demons, Satan is the Prince of Wrath. Finally, Blitz delivers a final monologue at the end of the episode where he talks about how he just wants to prove that they are capable of doing just what everyone else is, killing people. At the time, this seemed like a joke, but as we now know, starting a business like Blitz's is hard in hell, especially for an imp. Access to the human realm is something only elites seem to have access to, and only allow lower level demons like Succubus to use under their direction and order. Blitz really did want to prove that they were capable of killing, or rather capable of managing a business built around killing, instead of being one of the many imps for hire doing all of the work but getting very little money, as indicated by Stryker. For those who haven't rewatched the pilot in a while, now is probably a great time to do so, as it really does feel like a fresh experience with everything we know now. A special thanks to our Patreon sponsors for helping make this video possible, and let me know anything I might have missed about this pilot in a comment down below. If you leave something interesting, maybe we'll make a video about it. See you next time!